Good morning, everybody. My name is Kristen Mahard. I am the Program Director at the Colorado Foundation for Water Education. You have tuned into an informational webinar to orient you to the Colorado Water Leaders Program. Thank you so much for joining. We just have a couple more people trickling in, so I'm going to do a minute of housekeeping here. I have all of you attendees muted, so if there is an issue at all with your technology moving forward, you can raise your little yellow hand on your dashboard. You can also type questions in the question box also on your dashboard. We'll go through a series of presenters this morning, and then we will give you an opportunity to ask your questions. So I ask you to jot down your questions as we go along here, and then we'll save about 15 or 20 minutes at the end of the webinar so you can ask your own questions of our presenters. All right, sounds like we are doing good. I'm glad that everybody can hear us, and we'll go ahead and get started. So many of you may be familiar with the Colorado Foundation for Water Education, but for those of you who are not, we are a statewide nonprofit organization. We're based in Denver, but we operate statewide in nearly every corner of the state possible. And we were created by the legislature in 2002 with a mission to promote a better understanding of Colorado's water resources and issues by providing balanced and accurate information and education. So we don't lobby or advocate for one issue or over another. Rather, we bring together diverse perspectives to have common learning experiences and understand the complexities and trade-offs associated with water in Colorado so that we can make informed water decisions. And we do that through a variety of programs. We have several informational programs. You may be familiar with our Headwaters magazine and Citizens Guide series and our blog. We have educational programs from tours, conferences, workshops, technical webinars, as well as a few leadership programs. The Water Fluency course is a 101 training, our Water Educator Network, and then Water Leaders, which you'll hear about today. So our target audiences are adults. We work with water professionals, policymakers, interested citizens and community leaders, as well as educators and outreach specialists across the state. Well, I think my favorite program that we run here at the Foundation is the Water Leaders Program, so I'm excited to tell you about it this morning. What exactly is Water Leaders? It's a very special leadership development program. There's really nothing else like it around the country. So you have a wonderful opportunity to get engaged in the goal of this program, which is to positively impact the Colorado water profession by developing a pipeline of emerging water leaders across various fields with the knowledge and skills to navigate the complex world of Colorado water. We all know that water is very complex and often contentious in Colorado, and this program was created in 2006 in order to create the next superstars, I guess you could say, in the water profession. So looking at you know, the conflict and the diversity that exists across the industry, the problems that need to be solved, the emotional intelligence that it takes to be a good manager and leader. those are the skill sets that we are training our classes to employ. We have 111 graduates at this point. So each year we admit 15 people. And this cohort is a group of mid-career professionals. So mid-career is typically someone that has enough experience within their career in water that they understand what their unique challenges and opportunities are to further develop their career. And so we are looking for folks that represent geographic and professional diversity. Each class is almost socially engineered so that we have somebody from every corner if possible of the state, every sector if possible, every specialty area, so that we have engineers interacting with ranchers, interacting with conservationists, interacting with educators. So I would encourage you to keep that in mind as you're applying, is what makes you unique and how can you contribute to the diversity of the class. We're also looking for applicants that already hold leadership responsibilities. So these are folks that are leading teams within their workplace. They are directly supervising other people. They are going outside the workplace to assume other leadership roles on boards or councils or volunteer commitments. And then we're also looking for folks that have a demonstrated commitment to water issues. And what is your vision for the future of water in Colorado? And how can your unique skill sets and abilities help get us to that place? We want to know that you are willing to understand all the multiple perspectives that exist in the water community and are eager to help yourself break down some of those professional silos so that you can broaden your horizons. I'll move on here. The Foundation for Water Education has a high standard for evaluation across our program areas. We worked with an independent third-party evaluation firm, the Omni Institute, to develop a very robust evaluation program of employers, alumni, current class members, and program staff and consultants. And so we have a lot of data from our alumni on where they are now and where they have been, as well as from each class we have a standard of excellence as it relates to getting real-time feedback and incorporating that into program development. So just this past year, we saw that 100% of the survey respondents are very or reasonably satisfied with the program effectiveness, and they would recommend the program to other participants and employer organizations. And 90% of alumni are satisfied with the opportunity to network with prominent water professionals. We also seen from the employers that they are reporting that their employee is actually utilizing the skills in the workplace and that their organization is benefiting from this training. We have some employers that send, they almost have an internal application process to send water leaders, to send applicants to the Water Leaders program. And so we are very fortunate that it is a competitive and sought after program, but it also means that not everybody is selected from year to year. I don't see any questions at this point, so we are going to move on, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to Cheryl Benedict. Cheryl has been our leadership consultant for the Water Leaders program for 4 years now. This is her 4th year working with us, And she has extensive experience, and the program really could not run as effectively and as beautifully as it does without Cheryl. So I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl so she can tell you a little bit about herself, as well as the process, the specific process that we go through in this training. Take it away, Cheryl.
Thank you, Kristen. So I completely agree with what you said, Kristen. This is my favorite program, too. I feel like it's just incredibly special to get 15 people together every year with the intention of fostering self-awareness and building long-lasting relationships and fostering trust in the water community. And I feel like it's been an amazing opportunity for me to get to facilitate this because it's just a consummate joy. And you can see on my slide here that I'm all about leadership development and coaching and assessments, which I think make me particularly well served to facilitate this. So how do leaders develop? So I like to stay in touch with kind of cutting edge research around how do leaders develop. And everyone agrees that there are really 3 aspects of leadership development that are vital if you really want to facilitate development and growth and succession planning, getting leaders ready not only to do a really good job where they are, but to get them ready for more. And so the first one is education and training. And of course, the Water Leaders Program is very deeply steeped in state-of-the-art education and training around leaders. Secondly, coaching and mentoring. As we'll describe in a moment, there's an opportunity for you to have coaching every single month, as well as mentoring within the program, both via each other, both through water professionals in Colorado, and then also through a peer advisory group, which we refer to as a cohort group. So you'll have a tremendous amount of feedback and opportunities to grow through the vehicle of coaching and mentoring. And then experience, we all know that we learn so much through in the bones sorts of opportunities to actually do it, you know, not just learn about it, but actually physically do it. So for many of you, we may work with your boss to create job assignments or stretch assignments, which are opportunities to take on more. Angie, I don't know if you want to end up talking about, she's one of our alumni who's going to speak in a minute, the sort of stretch assignment that you took on with CEO selection, but there are just opportunities that are going to arise where you can take on more and practice the leadership skills that you're learning during the Water Leadership Program. So here's our process. We have 4 two-day training sessions that are focused on leadership, and usually it's a day or day and a half of leadership, and then a day or a half day on getting to do field trips or really fun things where we get to go be deeply steeped in regional and statewide water issues. And I think Kristen does such a beautiful job of any topic that we're focused on, she finds external folks to come in and talk about it so that it's not just sort of academic, it's extremely practical. Then we'll have a focus on assessments. One of the things that the Water Leaders Program is really known for is being deeply steeped in emotional intelligence, which is 4 quadrants. It's self-awareness. How well do you know yourself? How well do you know when you're triggered? You know, do you know when to put the brakes on? Do you know when to light a fire under yourself? And then it's the aspect of others. How well do you know others, and how can you lead them based upon that knowledge, especially when they're different from you? So we spend a lot of time on assessments, and one is a 360. If you haven't done that before, it's exactly what the name implies. You get feedback 360 from all the different people who interact with you as a leader. So it might be coworkers, it might be your boss, it might be clients or customers or even direct reports if you have them. Just an opportunity to learn about yourself and to learn what people admire about you as a leader, what are the ways that you've had the greatest impact on them. It's an amazingly eye-opening, usually positive experience for folks. Then there's the Harrison assessment, where we get to look at what are the essential traits and what are the desirable traits for leadership, and to get to gauge yourself against those to look to see, wow, I really enjoy these leadership competencies. These are the ones that I naturally gravitate towards and get better and better at, or these are the ones that I avoid. And that ends up being a very fascinating conversation, both one that you and I will have, but also with the group at large. And then the Myers-Briggs. If you haven't heard of that, close to 3 million people take the Myers-Briggs every year, and it becomes a bedrock of what we do, because we look at what your particular type is as it pertains to conflict, as it pertains to communication, as it pertains to your team. Then we'll have the opportunity to craft an individual development plan for you. And we'll spend 2 hours together doing that in person after session 1. We may even want to invite in your supervisor or boss for the final half hour just to show them, here's what we plan to work on. Here's how you can be an accountability partner to me so that you can give me feedback on these different leadership behaviors that I'm working on. Then we'll have monthly coaching meetings, you and I. We'll also have peer advising calls, which means that you'll get together with a small group of water leaders, your designated group, every month, and basically talk about, here's what I'm up against personally, here's what I'm up against professionally, here's where I'd love your guidance, wisdom. Have you guys ever been up against this before? What have you done? And it creates a close container, a very intimate, I would say, container where there's a lot of trust, a lot of friendship that gets developed, and these cohorts usually go on way beyond the Water Leaders Program because they're relationships that are solid. And then finally, at the end of every Water Leader Program, we'll do a plus delta. And so what that basically means, plus, is what did you appreciate about today? What should we keep doing, protect and safeguard? Delta simply means change. What are those things that we could do to make it even more effective? And Kristen and I take that every single time, and we will then customize the next session based upon the feedback you give us. And oh, by the way, that picture, that's from the graduating class of 2015. So here's the expectations that we have for you. And that is basically that, you know, it's kind of all about you. This is one of these settings where it's perfectly appropriate for it to be all about you, because it's such a personal endeavor that gets enhanced by assessments and collaboration with your peers. Leadership development, at least to my thinking, works best if you do have a supervisor or others around you who are involved in your development during the 6 months of the Water Leader Program. In other words, you might say, hey, Joe, I'm going to be working on this particular behavior. Would you mind giving me feedback on how I'm doing on that? Because I really want to make a change in this way. And so I believe that it just intensifies the effectiveness of the program if you invite others in. Third, you're going to get to know me very well, because every month we'll meet together via the phone in a coaching relationship. And it'll be an opportunity for you to confidentially share what's going on and to get the support of someone who's a certified executive coach, which is me, with regard to what you're up against. And I very much like to make myself available not only for our scheduled time, but if there's something that comes up real time that you'd like support with. And then another expectation is just that you're going to be the champion of your own journey. You're going to be responsible for your own development. And I think many of the alumni who are coming up next will attest to, that you get as much out of it as you put into it. And then finally, just that Kristen and I very much intend to use the whole plus delta process to not only improve the program, but to bring the very best to you that we can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cheryl. And if you have questions for Cheryl, we'll wait until the end. Now we'll move into our alumni panel. Like I said, we are proud that over 100 alumni have, 95% of them have stayed within the Colorado water profession, which is amazing. And these people are becoming the next generation of thought leaders, if not already. We've selected 3 special guests from the 2015 program to give you a few stories on how they have begun to utilize the skills and tools that they acquired during the program, and highlight a few of their key takeaways from the program. So we'll start with Matt Bond with Denver Water here in Denver. Then we'll move to Angie Fowler with SGM in Glenwood Springs. And then we'll end with Eric Engel with Anadarko Petroleum in Northern Colorado. And I will play cleanup as we wrap up the webinar. So let's turn it over to Matt.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me all right. I apologize for the nasally voice. I've got a little bit of a cold here this morning. You know, the Water Leaders program for me really was a tremendous experience. Primarily, it really helped me develop a very keen sense of my own emotional intelligence, which was, you know, you'll hear a lot of jargon in this particular program, so we'll try and steer away from that early on. But one of the things that I noticed most about the process was it helps you deal with real-life situations in a much different way. And for me, not only identifying the skills that I had through some of the assessments, but also the things that I needed to work on that I wasn't so good at and needed more work. So the thing that Cheryl mentioned earlier about the circle of trust is the thing that impressed me the most early on, and the idea that we as a group built very quickly a sense of trust with each other, and we all bought into the idea that that was what we were there to do. And without that level of trust, you won't be able to do the hard work that comes later on. And so I would advise any of you who are going to apply for this is to really go into it with an open mind, knowing that you are going to allow yourself to be vulnerable in some cases, to open yourself up in some ways that maybe you wouldn't think to do in a situation like this, and you'll really benefit from that. And I know that certainly was true with me. I'd been through some leadership programs in the past and generally been underwhelmed, but this is certainly not one of those. And Cheryl and Kristen are very good at helping foster that sense of trust that allows you to really work within yourself and get feedback from others in the class. One of the things that I was wrestling with throughout this program was some change management pieces, and I was going through a transition at Denver Water. I run the youth education program, and we were in a planning effort, and I was really struggling with it. And one of the things that became clear to me through this and working through these things was I found out I really don't like planning very much, which was not helpful in this particular situation. I do it fine, I just don't like to do it. And when I realized that my frustration with the process wasn't really about my ability or inability to plan, it was really about how I looked at planning. It allowed me to take a different stance at the process that I was going through and use some great skills to sort of shift my paradigm a little bit and look at it from a direction that was more comfortable for me. And so it was great in that. I was also up for a promotion during this time, and it was a tricky process, and Cheryl and Kristen and my other team members there in the group sort of were a great sounding board for some of my frustrations with that particular process. It turned out really well in the end, but you know, sort of navigating the trickier parts of a process like that when maybe it's not going quite the way you envisioned it going, or maybe the way that it's presented initially changes in the middle of a process. The skills that I learned in this group really helped me tackle some of those thornier problems that normally would have maybe tripped me up in the past. It was also really helpful in terms of the skills I learned from my personal life. I've got 2 teenage daughters. For those of you with teenage daughters, or were a teenage daughter at some point, you know how that is. And I really learned how to look at their situations in a different way, and the empathy that I had in their personality styles, and learning about how I could recognize those types of things were very helpful in dealing with just some of the everyday life situations that happened for me. You know, the idea of the trust that you build with your group is such a fundamental piece to this. It really is. We joked about it quite a bit, but it really is Vegas rules in real life. I know I can call any of the people in my group and ask them a question, whether it's a personal life question or a professional question, and they'll be available to answer. Even if they don't know the answer, they know me well enough to help me through a particular issue, and that's a tremendous piece that you leave with, knowing that you're available for someone else in the same way, where you can use your personality strengths to help them in a situation when they need it, and vice versa. And lastly, you know, the idea that this lives on afterwards is really true. We met as a group last week and sort of had an additional session, and hopefully you all will be able to do the same. But even there, I noticed I was able to ask a couple of people some questions about some issues going on, and my wife has been going through a job transition herself, and I really got some great feedback from them on how to handle some questions that I was having with that particular process, and how I might look at what I was doing in my part of that process as a challenge rather than something I needed to be afraid of. So Cheryl in particular has been a great help for me in that particular way. So I would really encourage everyone to join in full and wholeheartedly in this process, and really be open to the opportunities that come as a result. So that's it for me, and I'd be happy to take questions later.
Okay, thank you so much, Matt. Angie Fowler with SGM, please take it away.
Hello. Well, welcome everyone, and I'm really excited to be sharing my personal experience with the Water Leaders class this last year. I am going to just tell you right off the bat, I'm a solid extrovert, and that will mean a lot to you if you get into the program and start doing some Myers-Briggs assessments about your personality style. But I gain energy from settings like this, so you'll have to pardon me if I start speaking too fast. So I'll do my best to slow down, because the experience was far more than I expected. And similar to Matt's thoughts on his experience with the program, I've been able to overcome a lot of my reservations about being more engaged and thoughtful in challenging conversations, both personally and professionally. And what that means is, you know, coming into those circumstances with a level of confidence actually helps build respect for your peers and your audience that you're among. So that's my overarching and takeaway. But I'll share some other things with you and some key insights. You're going to get out of this program what you invest, and I wouldn't hesitate to hold back on any personal things that may be really critical to your professional performance too. So you're going to find that the level of trust you're going to build with your group by investing wholeheartedly in the conversations will get you to a place that you'll be really surprised and excited about through the process. And so don't inhibit yourself to be vulnerable. I really felt that the program for me was, I guess, successful from my own personal perspective because my supervisor was my accountability partner. He was truly interested and invested in me in learning more about myself and bringing the leadership aspects to the company I work for. So he, after every session, was dying to hear about what we talked about and reading the same materials. So the accountability partner doesn't necessarily need to be internally with you at work, but I recommend having one in the professional space that you're in. It really will just help you get the value out of the program. And we did have some assessments that really struck home with me, and Cheryl and I were able to really kind of work through what the information about my particular strengths and job suitability and where I'm really happy in my profession. She really helped me kind of take all that information and move forward and apply it at work and go in a much different direction than I think I was heading in my company. So right now, I'm one of only 14 females in a company of over 100 people, so that's the traditional, engineering company. But I'm on the Western Slope, so our demographics here are a lot different than a Denver firm with more people and maybe the makeup of females. But why that matters is our company has grown through a series of very strong technical, very smart, detail-oriented gentlemen. And so most of our upper management is heavy on gentlemen that have been here for 15 to 35 years, and their role as a leader in the company is purely technical. And so through the Water Leaders process and program, I'm excited to share that I've actually been promoted twice this year in our company, and I became the first team leader, female team leader, in a technical role in our company, and then I was just recently this week promoted to a sector leader. And in our company, the sector leaders go directly to the CEO of the company. So for me, that's huge, and I really put that success back on what I was able to learn about myself through Water Leaders and have the support of the coaching through Cheryl and Kristen and the environment and the network of peers that I was able to become friends with in my class. So for me, it's a huge success. It's not the end. I think, too, Cheryl had mentioned, a kind of a stretch assignment that I really think put me where I'm at. And we had a CEO here at SGM who was in that role for about 15 years. He was one of the founders, and the former CEO was the other founder. So we were able to vote on who should be part of bringing on a new CEO at SGM. And so I was fortunate enough to be one of the employees that was part of that process, and I was really able to apply the skills that I was learning through Water Leaders throughout that process, and challenging conversations, different perspectives, both coming from the Front Range consulting type of firm and the different management and organizational structure. And I was able to apply my skills through that conflict type of situation among a very intimidating audience of gentlemen in this company. So it was thoroughly, in the end, enjoyable. And we have a new CEO coming on board here in a week or two, and I was part of that process. And so that stretch assignment really kind of just added to how I have been able to grow through what I gained at Water Leaders. So with that, I will answer some questions at the end. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angie. Next, I'd like to welcome Eric Engel. Eric, share with us some of your highlights.
Thank you, Kristen. I remember sitting at my desk last year listening to this audio session as Kristen tried to give as much information as possible to the potential water leaders. And I remember still wondering before I was selected and had the opportunity to participate just what the balance would be regarding addressing water issues in the state and leadership. And I think I came in expecting maybe we would spend 30% of our time on leadership and maybe 70% of our time talking about water matters. And I was very pleasantly surprised to find what a substantial commitment there is in the project related to leadership. And it's probably 90% of our time is really digging in deep, focusing on leadership skills, traits, social interaction, and really the foundational components, because we have our everyday lives to apply it in the water sense, and there's certainly some great examples we had along the way, some field trips to apply. But I was just very encouraged by the amount of effort that Cheryl and Kristen put into the program, the in-depth commitment to the leadership side. There is a component of the class that's very important related to the social engineering, the fact that there's an effort made to develop a group that represents a broad spectrum, broad perspectives, and that really adds so much value to the discussion, to the insight, and to the learning experience for everyone. I was fortunate or not to be one of the token introverts in the group. In our class, I think there were 12 extroverts, most of those being fairly strong extroverts, and then there were 3 introverts. So there was a great time of laughter and learning related to how to relate to each other on that level, but quickly we found how strongly we had strengths in so many other areas, and we moved past a lot of those issues. But really in my role at Anadarko Petroleum, some of those key foundational, emotional, relational, personality type traits that I have were important to tweak to be more effective in my organization, in my role, in my relationship with others. And Cheryl was great to provide some clarity, some insight related to that. One of the key things we leveraged after each class was the plus delta, which Cheryl alluded to, the idea that we would highlight what was good about our experience and then talk about what changes could occur. And I like to think that each class has that opportunity to provide that input to not only help themselves from class to class to be able to better prepare for the next time, but really to pass the torch to the next year's class. And so I feel like we learned so much and we benefited so much from what others had done before us, and I'm excited to think that some of the steps we took as a group, as a program this year, will be a real benefit to others next year. Again, to reiterate what others have said, the idea that you get out of it what you put into it, and I think understanding that at the end of the class, as Cheryl would say, it's a new beginning, and it's an opportunity to apply these types of skills over a lifelong experience. And I've got my reference book here with me, and I rely on it regularly related to conflict, communication with others, and it's a valuable opportunity, and the resources are substantial. The relationships are great, and as Matt pointed out, we have a strong, close camaraderie with our partners, and I think we'll continue to rely on those for the rest of our professional careers, and then even in our personal lives, developing those friendships. So I really appreciate the opportunity and thankful to be able to share a little bit about my experience as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. So I'd like to conclude the alumni panel with a few points about the application to water resource issues across the state. I did get a question, from one of the webinar participants ahead of time. She asked, I am looking for a challenging opportunity to engage with others about the critical water issues that we are encountering now and expect to be faced with in the future. How much of this course is devoted to this type of content? And that's an excellent question. You've heard that this is really a leadership development training, and I would say maybe it's about 75% leadership content, but then that other 25% we are applying specifically to the skills and competencies that we believe that the water leaders profession needs to exhibit to address some of the top technical and policy issues that we are being confronted with. And so we've spent a lot of time designing and adapting the curriculum specifically to water in Colorado. It starts off with a session on team building and understanding yourself as a leader. And it moves into the second session on navigating change and creative problem solving. The third session is on constructive conflict and skillful communication. And we wrap up the fourth session with building a water community of practice. And then some classes choose to go beyond and design and deliver a fifth and sixth session for themselves. So what we do is we take those leadership themes for each session and we apply it to specific case studies that are happening in that given topic area or region. So we rotate the trainings around the state so we can see the variety of issues that are happening, on the Eastern Plains versus the metro area versus the headwaters versus the western slope. We bring in guest speakers and ask them to really be a leader unplugged and give us an inside look at a challenge or conflict or change that they've confronted and what are some of the lessons that they can impart onto the class of water leaders. We do a series of site visits. So we'll spend at least, for each 2-day session, we'll spend at least 1/2 of a day out in the field. So you can go see, a river restoration project or a state-of-the-art water treatment facility. But those field visits are really kind of tangential because those are experiences that you can get outside of the Water Leaders program. The reason that we include them is to kind of reinforce and give real-time application to what you're learning in the classroom. We also pair you up with a shadower, or I guess it would be a shadowee. So each water leader is assigned 2 shadowing folks from across the state that are already in leadership positions, whether it's a state legislator or the state engineer. We have a list of about 100 people that we rely on as trusted advisors to mentor the class of water leaders. So you have the opportunity to spend a day with each of your 2 assignments and really learn what their job is like and what are some of the issues they're confronting and how do they deal with it. And then we also have, social events where we get the whole alumni network together. We have, house parties and happy hours, so you get to meet other folks that have gone through the program, and it's really kind of it's just a great community of practice, and especially as we do additional trainings with alumni. Every year at Water Congress, we have a day-long refresher course where we are looking at topics and advanced skills for the Water Leaders alumni. And then, of course, this is an opportunity for you to engage with the Foundation for Water Education and all the other work that we do. So you can see we rely on alumni to help with, the current class, but also, our tours and publications and the information education programs we're doing across the state. So that wraps up our alumni panel. I'm going to go through a couple logistics here real quick, and then we'll open it up for about 15 minutes of questions from attendees. This would be a great item to share with your supervisor as well. With the tuition of $3,000, some folks think that that's a pretty high price tag, but to be honest, the per person cost is double that, and we get a grant from the Colorado Water Conservation Board each year to subsidize half of the cost. And so we're able to charge only $3,000 per person, which includes your trainings, assessments, coaching, meals, and lodging for each session. Now, we do have several partial scholarships available, and those are generously donated from alumni, from the individuals as well as their employers. So we are able to raise $4,000 with the alumni campaign this year, and we'll be able to provide a few partial scholarships for those that exhibit merit and need for financial assistance. And so that typically goes to rural applicants or nonprofit applicants that would not otherwise be able to afford this training. I'd like to let you know that your application needs to include 2 letters of recommendation. So that could be your direct supervisor, a past supervisor, somebody, a client, somebody that is invested in your performance. And you can go online and download the application questions ahead of time so that you can prepare the most thoughtful responses. Those applications are reviewed by an advisory committee of my board of directors. And once again, the admission criteria is based on geographic and professional diversity, your commitment to Colorado water, as well as your demonstrated leadership potential. The 2016 class dates are here on your screen. We meet every other month from March to September, and we will be visiting Castle Rock, Grand County, the headwaters of the Colorado River, Salida, the headwaters of the Arkansas River, as well as in Denver for the graduation. And so if you know that you won't be able to attend one of those sessions, then I would encourage you to wait until 2017 to apply, because the attendance is mandatory. You can always contact me for additional information if you're still kind of wondering, am I ready for this training? Do I have enough experience? Do I have too much experience? You know, I would say the average age of a participant is about 40 years old. We do have some folks that are much younger, but that have really already made a solid commitment to taking a leadership position for their organization or agency. And we also have some folks that are kind of in their second career. They're making a major shift, and so they might be a more seasoned veteran in Colorado water, but they're looking to change sectors or switch things up, and therefore need some help from Cheryl in doing so. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions here. I have one for Cheryl. We have somebody, Cheryl, that's asking, what are the development assignments generally composed of? For instance, do they go off and do research? Do they do exercises with fellow coworkers? So maybe you can kind of refer to all the inter-session assignments that we give to the class as some of their assignments for development.
So are we talking about like the stretch assignments or job development assignments? Is that what we're wondering about?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe outside of the classroom, what are some of the assignments that they receive? So from, you know,
like
the reading. Yeah.
Yeah, Kristen, do you have our curriculum right there? Maybe you could respond to that.
Yeah, so we, there's a lot of intercession kind of work that is occurring. Most of it centers around the coaching and the cohort calls that we referenced already. But we do have a lot of time set aside for assessment. So you're online taking these surveys. You're asking your colleagues and coworkers to take the 360 survey along with you. We have a series of readings. We have kind of a selection of text that we ask you to read before each session. And then with Cheryl, when you craft your individual development plan, there will be some specific exercises that are appropriate for your particular needs. So, you know, whether that's trying out a new management technique or testing a difficult conversation with a trusted colleague. And so hopefully that answers your question. We have another question here. Let's see, the team building and self-assessment aspects seem to me to be perfect for extroverts, but scary for introverts. All the alumni I know, introverts and extroverts, say they loved all of it, but I still wonder, how well does the program work for the more introverted, and does it help develop more of those interpersonal skills? So this is a great question for you, Cheryl.
I'd like to speak to that, and I'd also like Eric, if you would chime in as well. So because I work so closely with leaders who are both extroverted and introverted, and because I actually am borderline extrovert introvert, I feel like I have a particular sensitivity to that dynamic. And so one of the things that we do to create a sense of safety, so it's not, you're not just looking across the horseshoe at 14 other people and thinking, oh God, you know, I don't know these folks. One of the things we do to create a sense of intimacy is that we've developed a small cohort groups where you meet with a cohort leader, which will be either Kristen and myself, but then 3 other classmates, where you'll really develop a very close bond. And it's an opportunity to just plumb the depths with them, to talk about, man, this is what I'm up against. This is really hard. You know, have you ever been up against this? And so that's intended specifically for introverts to create a sense of safety and belonging. So every time you walk through the door, you've got 3 others, or 4 if you count me and Kristen, people that you know up close and personal because you've been meeting every month by the phone. The other thing we do is I spend a lot of time creating opportunities to do stuff in twosomes, you know, dyads, where you get to explore something or go deeper. So it's not just a large group experience. The intention is to have opportunities to build relationships one-on-one. Eric, can you respond to that question as well?
Certainly, Cheryl. And I think you've highlighted some really important components that have been interwoven into the program that help some of us who maybe struggle with being in an extroverted environment. Some of the additional opportunities involve just taking time to, as a group, address the differences and similarities that we had, highlighting the energy value that introverts versus extroverts play on that group setting, understanding how each other tick. I think that really kind of diffused some of the concerns, maybe the false concerns that I had built up entering into the program. There's a lot of opportunity to share, to develop personal relationships beyond just the leadership role. And certainly as the program evolves over the period of time, it's like a family that you're working with. And at that point, any reservation to be engaged and to be concerned about what others think or how involved to be. Those kind of things fall by the wayside, and it's really this family relationship that just gives you a comfort to engage and to work beyond some of those personal, maybe reservations that you may have coming into it.
That's great, thanks. And I think, Eric, your class was unique that it was skewed towards a majority extroverts, but we do see a balance each year, a more kind of 50-50 balance. And so congratulations to you for surviving such a such an extroverted class. I have another question. I may have answered it already. So outside of the class dates, what other time commitments should participants expect? In other words, is there homework, and how much time should we expect to spend on it? So outside of those 8 in-person trainings, between each session, I would estimate about 8 to 10 hours for assessments, coaching, readings, reflection, and assignments. Does that sound about right, Cheryl?
Yeah, you know, I think, and I remember Sean said that he wanted to make sure that one of us told the class of 2016, and that is that it's fairly front-end loaded. So you'll be asked to do the Myers-Briggs and Strength Finder even before we have session 1. So that's a requirement, and also to read the book 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And so I think what you're saying about the 8 hours is really true before session 1, and then between session 1 and session 2, you'll I think that's also an intense time. And Angie, Eric, Matt, you can confirm that, but that's when you're assigning all of your raters to give you feedback on your leadership behavior with the 360, and it's also when you take the Harrison assessment, and then it's also when you get together with me for 2.5 hours personally. So I'll come to you, we'll spend 2 hours going over the 360 and the Harrison results, and then if it's appropriate, we'll invite in your supervisor for an additional half hour to talk about your individual development plan. So my sense of it is that before session 1 and between session 1 and session 2 is the most intense. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's real valuable time, though. You know, make sure you clear your docket so that you have the time to really address those things well. You know, part of that investment that Angie talked about in terms of how far in you want to put yourself, those are really valuable times when you're having your own self-reflection and others reflecting on you, so don't devalue that time.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, Matt, Angie, and Eric. We appreciate your time. I'm going to wrap this up. It is 10 o'clock. If you have additional questions, feel free to email or call me. I'm always available, and I'd be eager to hear about your particular goals for applying for water leaders. What are you struggling with? What are some of the issues that you want to bring to the class to explore? And I hope we do see your application. Start asking for those letters of recommendation now. And I have recorded this webinar, so we'll share it on the website if you know of anybody else that is interested in learning more about the program. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and happy holidays. Thank you.